Hey guys, I'm back with another video. I figured it was a great time now that we're pretty far into the classic anniversary realms to go over again some easy warrior leveling tips. I know there's a lot of you that bet in the YouTube comments saying, hey, I'm just starting out as a warrior alt now. I played something else. I really want to try warrior. Can we go over some tips? Of course. Now these tips are very easy, ones that maybe experienced or veteran players have already known or know by the back of their hand, but I think it's still important to get this information out for people so that everyone can enjoy warrior and have a great time with the class. So to get started here, now I'm not really fond of suggesting people to buy things, but I think since we're so far into the classic anniversary realm, I think it's pretty okay to ask some new warrior players to get fiery weapon on their axe. So my very first tip here is if you really want to make warrior leveling, a lot smoother, fiery weapon is the way to go. And I'm going to talk about this in a couple different tips, but we're going to get started with this. So obviously you see here my level 21. Again, I'm doing another warrior. I have a problem, but I have a fiery weapon on this weapon. And I want you to watch my weapon swing timer because I'm going to show you a couple things where you can get some insane burst damage without literally putting in any effort at all. So I'm going to charge in here, watch the weapon swing timer. I'm going to press hamstring or I'm going to press Sunder Armor right before my auto goes off. Now, a couple reasons why I do that is because Sunder Armor or Hamstring or Rend does not overlap on your auto attack like Heroic Strike does. So if I press either Sunder, Hamstring, or Rend right before that auto attack goes off, those abilities can proc the fiery weapon. So you saw I pressed Hamstring there. I got 40 damage from the fiery proc. Now, why I'm saying to do that before your weapon swing timer fully clears off or you hit your auto attack is because you can essentially get double the fiery in a short amount of time and get insane burst damage. So what you can do is you can hit hamstring. I hit for the 40 damage and then the auto attack goes off. The auto attack crits and I get a fiery proc on that. I'm essentially getting like 150 to 200 damage combined in a matter of 0.5 seconds. That's going to blow down these mobs, essentially one-shot the lower level ones, or basically take about half of this mob's health away in about 0.5 seconds. So that's why I'm really keen on fiery. And if you time it right, you can get some insane burst damage when it comes to fiery. Now, the next tip I want to talk about is critters. You see this poor innocent squirrel. This is like food for a warrior, whether it's a squirrel, a mice, a roach. Any sort of neutral critter like this is actually extremely useful for a warrior in a couple of ways. First, let's talk about mobility. Obviously, as a warrior, pre-40 without mount, there isn't much mobility. No cheetah, no blink, no, anything like that. No movement speed, no talents, things like that. So you can use charge as a simple mobility. So let's just pretend we're walking down a path. I got to get the flight path or something. We can use these critters as just a way to speed up our mobility. Now, obviously, as you saw, I got charge and I auto attack. These are another great reason why these critters are extremely useful for your leveling journey is I just got about 28 rage from charging and hitting that critter. Now, late game, you can actually use these critters to get flurry procs. So if you crit on a critter, let's say pre-pull, you get a free 15 seconds and 3 charges of flurry right before your dungeon pull or even a raid pull. That's massive for your threat output, your DPS output, things like that. But not only that, you can get Wind Fury procs off of these critters. So if you're in a low level dungeon where you can start getting Wind Fury, like Scarlet Monastery, there's tons of critters out in the courtyards and things like that. You crit it and you get a Wind Fury proc. You just filled the half of a rage bar, not even on an actual mob, on a critter. So step number 2 or tip number 2 here is use your critters not only for rage generation or flurry procs, but also mobility. Tip number 3, and this is especially for hardcore players who find themselves having to keep re-level because their tune dies, or if you just can't decide on a warrior, or you're just an altaholic, you really can use this tip number 3 for really any class, and that's enchanting common items. So in WoW Classic, you have the ability without being rendered by certain item levels and things like that. You can really enchant gear any way you want. So my friend here, I had him send me some of his items so I can show you guys. He has a level 3 white common axe with fiery weapon on it, a white chest piece with 50 health, and light chain boots with minor speed. He also has a couple other pieces where light chain gloves, 5 strength, and these bracers 5 strength. These are level 5, even level 3 items that will boost your leveling journey tremendously. I mean, you will easily see the difference with these stats on. It doesn't take any work at all. The only thing, obviously, as a hardcore player is once you're done using them, send them to a bank tune so that way you can keep reusing them without losing them from dying. But anyways, these items are a massive boost. And if you having to keep re-rolling a warrior, or you can, like I said, you can do this for any class, enchant these white items, send them back, and you can use them for multiple different tunes. So tip number 3 is have a set of white or gray common items that you have enchanted that will help you boost and make your leveling process 20 times faster. Tip number 4, I'm going to be talking about Cruelty and the Fury Tree. Your first 5 points, especially if you are on an active server, should be going into Cruelty. Now, why I say that is because there's been a couple of my videos where I have been a fan of taking the 3 out of 3 Rend first, mainly because Rend at an early level pre-20 is a good carry, and Rend is actually extremely useful in that level bracket. But if you are on a server like Doomhowl or Nightslayer or let's say Dream Scythe, where you're actively getting Oni drops, 5% crit drops or now ZG buffs, you should always be taking the 5 out of 5 Cruelty. And that's very simple because of this reason. 5 out of 5 Cruelty increases your crit percentage by 5%. If you look at me, I am level 21. I have 10% crit right now, and that is with an Oni buff boon. So when I take that Oni buff and use it to level, I'm already sitting at 15% crit. Because of that Cruelty, I added 5% crit and stacks with the Oni buff. I'm already sitting at 15% crit at a level 21. If I'm fishing out overpowers, if I'm fishing out, I'm fishing out overpowers, and then eventually I'll have the improved overpower talent, which I can get here pretty soon. I'm going to be pumping. Not only am I getting the increased critical chance of overpowers, I'm getting a massive crit increase because of Oni buff and the 5-on-5 Cruelty. I'm getting Oni buffs pretty much daily. There is 3 to 4 Oni drops on Doomhowl alone, basically every single day. Cruelty is huge from a leveling process if you can stack it with world buffs. If you're kind of on a dead server, I almost recommend, like I've done in a couple videos, is taking Rend first, mainly because you can get sweeping strikes right at 30 if you just go straight down the arms tree. You can't get it until 35 if you put the 5 in Cruelty. But Cruelty, tip number 4, take it if you are on a very active server. It stacks with world buffs. It will help your leveling process tremendously. All right, guys, tip number 5 is using a two-handed weapon to start. Your two-handed weapon mischance is severely lower than dual wielding, especially at a low level with no hit percentage gear. Unless you are constantly heroic strike queuing, which I've talked about in some videos, two-handed leveling is always going to be better simply because you have a way better chance to hit. And if you have world buffs, if you have the fiery enchant on, two-handed leveling is going to be a breeze. I'm not saying dual wield leveling is bad and people shouldn't dual wield level, but if you are a new player and you are looking for ways to level fast, efficiently, you need to be using a two-handed weapon. Dual wield leveling is a lot of fun. Trust me, I do it on some streams. Sometimes I do challenges where I do dual wield leveling only, but most of those times I'm heroic strike queuing, because if I wasn't heroic strike queuing, the mischance would drive me insane. So tip number 5 here is always try to stick with the two-handed weapon until you get way later in the game. My last and final tip goes around the ability Overpower. You should always be trying to farm out or fish out Overpower procs. You can get Overpower procs from using Sunder Armor, which I've talked about in plenty of videos. You should always be using Sunder Armor in open world leveling, or you can also get those procs from Hamstring. Now, again, we've talked about how you can also get fiery procs from those. You can also get Overpower procs, and you should always be in the arms tree while you're leveling, especially at a low level. You're going to get the improved Overpower talent, which with 2 points gives you 50% chance to crit on that Overpower. That's a massive carry talent at a low level. Why wouldn't you try to get as many Overpowers as possible? Now, I'm not going to say it's going to happen on this mob, but let's try and see if we can fish out an Overpower proc. So I'm going to be pressing Sunder Armor, get the Sunder Armors up. Okay, I have 2 Sunders at 50% like we've talked about. Now I'm going to press a Hamstring, see if we can get an Overpower out. Now, obviously, we didn't get an Overpower on that, but that's your thought process. getting the 2 Sunders up, pressing a hamstring or potentially a rend at this low level to try and get an overpower. If you crit on an overpower, especially with some world buffs on or some good gear, you are literally going to take half of this mob's health with just an overpower, especially if you crit on it. I hope this video helped. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys another time.